In the quiet market of Nari, where life moved slower than the wind through rice paddies, there was a stall owned by an old woman named Yumi. Her wares were simple, woven baskets and handcrafted paper fans that cooled cheeks on sweltering days. She sat behind her goods under a sunshade umbrella, watching people as they passed. One day, a young man entered the market square carrying a basket filled with fresh bamboo shoots from his family's nearby grove. His name was Kaido, and he had come to sell his harvest but lingered in the shadows of Yumi's stall for reasons unknown even to him. The air around them hummed softly, a quiet rhythm that spoke of daily routines more than conversation. Yumi noticed Kaido from across the market, his basket still full as many buyers hurried by him. She called out gently, "Would you like some tea?" Kaido paused, surprised by her invitation, but nodded yes with a grateful smile. He set down his basket and joined Yumi under her umbrella. As she poured steaming water into 2 cups, he spoke of the silence that accompanied long walks through bamboo groves after rain, how each footstep echoed with small splashes and the rustle of leaves. Yumi listened intently, then placed a cup before Kaido. "Tell me more about your forest," she said, her eyes softening. Kaido felt compelled to share stories he had never shared before, tales of birds nesting in branches, how sunlight filtered through leaves in intricate patterns on the ground, and the coolness that lingered long after a rainstorm. Each detail seemed to open up inside him like a flower blooming. After some time, Yumi spoke again. "Your baskets are full, Kaido. But if you do not sell your goods today, perhaps they should be offered elsewhere?" Startled by her words, Kaido looked at his basket and then back to Yumi's gentle eyes. He nodded slowly, as if understanding something he had never considered before. "Maybe," she continued quietly, "there is a market closer to the grove where people are more in need of your offerings." Kaido thanked her quietly, gathering up his bamboo shoots with renewed purpose. Before leaving, he paused at Yumi's stall and placed one of the woven baskets as payment for tea. Yumi watched him go without speaking further, simply observing how Kaido's step became lighter with each stride towards a new market path. The sound of her kettle simmering on low flames was almost meditative in its consistency. As she returned to weaving another basket from reeds and bamboo stalks, Yumi felt a soft breeze pass by her stall, a reminder that every action has an unseen ripple effect on the world around it.
You're listening to the Empty Teahouse. The market square fell silent again, save for the rhythmic clack of Yumi's weaving. Under a light mist that hung low and cool over the village, Li Wei stood at his old family well.
Under a light mist that hung low and cool over the village, Li Wei stood at his old family well. It was morning, but the sky held the gray pall of a late-night rain, dampening even the air's usual warmth. The well had been here long before he'd walked away from this village years ago. Now it lay beneath its cloak of mist, water dark and deep within. A soft creak sounded behind him as the old wooden door to his family's house opened. His mother stepped out onto the porch, a small basket in hand. Her hair was wrapped in a scarf that looked worn from many washings, and she wore her grandmother's faded cotton blouse over loose trousers. Li Wei had left when this woman, once young and full of laughter, still held the world around her in her hands. "Morning," he said to her back as she approached the well with a slow shuffle. The path between the house and the well was short, but it seemed to stretch long under her feet. She paused beside him, eyes glancing down at the water's surface, then back up towards Li Wei's face. "Good morning." There was no judgment in those quiet tones, only acceptance. The basket rattled as his mother set it on a low stone wall near the well. She lowered herself to sit, hands resting on her knees. "I've come here every day for 50 years now," she said without looking at him. "Even when I thought there was no reason left in this world." Li Wei's gaze followed hers down into the murky depths of the well as a small splash marked where the bucket had dropped beneath the surface. "They say everything comes back around," his mother continued, her voice softer still. "I didn't believe it then, but perhaps now." Her hand reached out to touch the wooden rim of the old well. Li Wei bent down by the well, letting the rope slide through his fingers as he retrieved the bucket filled with water from the well's depth. He poured some into a nearby jug and set about cleaning it thoroughly before returning its contents. When he stood up again, she had begun to rise. "Would you like me to help?" Li Wei asked quietly, but already her hand was moving towards his shoulder, pushing him gently back down onto the wall beside her. "No," she said. "I can manage." He watched as her fingers worked deftly around each other and into the brim of the well's bucket again. A moment passed between them. No words needed to be spoken, for he understood she had not asked him here today to help, but rather to sit beside her. A distant bell rang out from a temple nearby, its soft tone rippling through the mist like the gentle lap of water against shore. His mother's shoulders relaxed as though something was easing within them, and Li Wei felt his own chest grow light. When she finally pulled back the bucket, water spilled over its edges as usual, but this time, rather than pour it into a jug or container, she let the small stream run down her hands and onto the well's wooden frame. A satisfied sigh escaped her lips. Sometimes, she murmured to herself more than him, "It's enough just to feel." Her fingers traced one last pattern on the rim before she straightened up with the basket once more in hand. Li Wei followed his mother back towards the house as the mist began to lift slightly around them. At the doorway, she paused and turned, looking back at the well they'd left behind, now nearly obscured by shadows. "Come visit," she said simply. "Anytime." And then she disappeared inside, leaving Li Wei standing there, watching as a stray cat darted past him towards the edge of town. The distant sound of temple bells still lingered in his ears as he walked back down the misty path away from the well.
Somewhere across the village, a distant light flickered and went out. At dawn, under the clear blue sky of early spring, in the temple courtyard where only pigeons cooed and sparrows chirped, an old man sat on a wooden bench.
At dawn, under the clear blue sky of early spring, in the temple courtyard where only pigeons cooed and sparrows chirped, an old man sat on a wooden bench, his hands clasping a chipped teacup. He wore loose robes that seemed to ripple with each breath he took, as if they carried the weight of years. Across from him stood a young woman, her eyes wide and curious beneath the brim of a sun hat, holding out a small, intricately carved wooden box. "Please," she said quietly, placing the box gently before him. "I found this in my grandfather's attic." The old man lifted his head slightly to meet her gaze but did not reach for the box. He seemed to be waiting, watching the morning light filter through the willow trees that encircled the courtyard. "I don't know what it is," she continued after a moment of silence, "but my grandfather told me about you. Said you could recognize things like this." The old man's lips twitched in what might have been a smile or a sigh. He nodded and finally took the box from her hands, lifting off its lid with practiced care. Inside lay a tarnished silver ring, intricately engraved with symbols long faded by time. "It belonged to my father," she said softly, her voice catching for just an instant. "He never spoke about it but kept it hidden away." The old man nodded again and placed the ring back into its box. He then opened his own small leather bag, pulling out a small piece of cloth that he used to carefully wrap the wooden container. Without another word, he handed her back both the box and its protective covering. "Thank you," she said, tucking them under her arm. "What do I?" "It's for your father," he interrupted gently. "If it can mean something to him now, then keep it safe." She blinked in surprise but nodded. The old man watched as she turned away and walked through the temple gate, his gaze following her until she was swallowed by the morning mist that shrouded the village path. Later, when the sun climbed higher and painted golden rays across the courtyard tiles, he rose from the bench, his movements slow and deliberate. He stepped towards a small garden patch where flowers sprang up between stones laid in rows like graves. With each step, he seemed to leave behind not just the quiet of dawn but the weight of things unsaid. Reaching the patch, he knelt down with a practiced grace that belied his age, his fingers moving over the soil as if coaxing life from it. A small seedling poked out among dead leaves and twigs. He carefully pulled it free and placed it in the palm of his hand. With deliberate care, he moved it to a fresh spot, pressing earth around its fragile roots. As he straightened up again, the sound of footsteps approached once more from behind him. He turned but saw only the morning wind dancing through the temple's tall pines, carrying whispers of a new day breaking over the village below.
The morning wind carried a single petal from the temple's plum tree, floating gently towards the old man's waiting hand. On a hillside terrace after a storm, raindrops lingered on the leaves and grass.
On a hillside terrace after a storm, raindrops lingered on the leaves and grass. The air was cool and smelled of earth and wet stone. A young woman named May sat cross-legged at the edge of the terrace, looking out at the valley below where fog began to rise like a slow-moving river. Beside her lay an open book with pages fluttering gently in the breeze. Her friend Lynn arrived, wiping rain from his hair and clothes. "May," he said softly when he saw her expression. He sat down beside her without a word and opened a small lunch bag he had brought along. "Thank you," May murmured, taking a wrapped rice ball from him. She took a bite but held the rest untouched in one hand. The two of them ate quietly for some time, each lost in their thoughts. When they finished eating, Lynn pulled out a pair of gardening scissors and began to cut back overgrown branches on a small bush near where May sat. His movements were steady, almost meditative. He worked without speaking until he stepped back to assess his work, then picked up the shears again with a new idea in mind. May watched him for a while before sighing softly and laying down her book. She stood and walked over to help Lynn pick up the cut branches. Together they carried them away from the terrace's edge and placed them neatly against a stone wall where another plant would benefit from their shade. Later, when they returned to sit at the edge of the terrace once more, May said, "You did well there." Lynn smiled faintly, glancing down at his hands as if noticing for the first time how clean and unmarked they were now that he had stopped working. He looked back up at her and nodded. They sat in companionable silence, watching the fog slowly clear from the valley below. A light breeze brought the scent of pine needles and distant flowers. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the hillside, May closed the book she had been reading and tucked it into her bag. Lynn put his scissors away in their leather case and stood up, brushing off imaginary dust from his trousers. May did likewise, folding up a blanket they'd used to sit on. Together they walked back down the winding path that led back to the village below, moving quietly through the twilight. Their shadows stretched long behind them until finally merging into one as night fell around them completely.
Somewhere across the valley, a night bird began to call. The rain had stopped by morning, and in the stillness of early light, droplets clung to every bamboo stalk.
The rain had stopped by morning, and in the stillness of early light, droplets clung to every bamboo stalk, glistening like tiny stars. At the edge of the grove stood a small tea stall where a man named Kaido sat daily with his kettle and charcoal stove. Today, he noticed a young woman carrying a large basket over her shoulder, making her way slowly through the wet leaves. She paused before him, looking at the ground as she set down her load. Her clothes were damp but not yet soaked. She had managed to shelter under trees most of the journey from town. Kaido poured hot water into his cups, already knowing what she would ask for. "Please," she said quietly when he handed them over. "I don't have money." He nodded and added a small packet of sugar to her cup without comment. She bowed her head in thanks, blowing softly on the tea before taking sips. The silence between them was comfortable. She knew from his presence that it did not need filling with words. "I lost my job last week," she said finally. I'm selling these eggs for extra money. Kaito looked into his own cup, swirling the liquid absently. It seemed no answer was necessary to her statement. They both understood there were reasons beyond just losing work. The basket rattled slightly as she moved it closer to herself. After finishing, she set her empty cup on the table beside Kaito's and straightened up. Thank you. He waved off the thanks with his hand, watching her go back down the path towards town. When she was out of sight, he finished making himself a fresh brew and sipped thoughtfully, eyes following after where she had walked. Later in the morning, as Kaito prepared to close up, another figure approached, not from town but along the grove's edge from the opposite direction. It was an older woman carrying nothing more than a small bag with dried herbs inside it. She joined him at his stall and took a seat without speaking. She did not ask for tea this time. Good morning, Kaito greeted her warmly, pouring 2 cups anyway. She accepted them with a slight smile and leaned back in the chair to enjoy the last of the day's coolness. The woman's eyes moved over to where the young woman had been, and then back again to meet his gaze squarely. I saw that, she said eventually, nodding towards where she was now long gone. It is not your job to give her answers. He looked at her sharply for a moment but understood. This was no rebuke, simply an observation of the way things are. Neither had been trying to solve problems just by offering a cup of tea. The sun will rise tomorrow, said Kaito quietly as he packed up his kettle and cups into their case. Yes, she agreed, rising from her seat. I'll see you next week. And then she too walked away down the grove path in the opposite direction to which she had come, leaving behind nothing but a faint scent of sage on the breeze that stirred through the bamboo stalks as they dried from their morning bath of raindrops.
The last droplet fell from a bamboo leaf, catching the morning light before disappearing. Stay if you can. The empty tea house rests. Until tomorrow.